what is an expectation of someone that's trying to buy mobile home parks? And it sounds like the mobile home is a little more accepted than the RV with bank money, but explain a mobile home park and how they evaluate it from a bank side. And then also give me that RV, what some of the objections you've been encountering when you're going to the banks about these.
Yeah. So on the bank side, how they look at the mobile homes, usually there are two ways to look at it, depending on if they take into consideration the lot rent as well as the park home rents, right? So the majority of the lenders, how they look at it, let's say if we have a 50 pad, park, it's a mix of lot rent only, meaning the tenant own their homes, they just pay us a lot rent. And also some other homes, the park, the owner actually owns the structure of the homes, right? So they'll pay us a higher rent that breaks down into the lot rent portion and also the park home rent portion. Most lenders who look at it, they will, first of all, take away the park home rent. So, okay, 50 homes, what's the lot rent? Call it $300, right? That's the lot rent. The times the amount of homes on there, call it 50, that's $15,000. Then apply an expense ratio and then the cap rate to come up with an valuation with lot rent only. And on top of that, they will say, okay, you've got, 30 homes that are owned by the park. What's their vintage? What's their condition? And each one is worth, let's call it $10,000, 10,000 a piece times 30, that's 300 grand. So they'll add that on top of the income approach from the lot rent. So that's how the majority of the bank would value the mobile homes. But also you've got some small amount of banks that will look at the aggregator rent, lot rent plus the park home rent minus the expenses, come up with NOI, and then the cap rate to capture the valuation. Those are the two ways that we see bank look at mobile homes.
What are you seeing on your average expense ratio for your mobile home parks that are mainly pad only?
If it's mainly pad, Paul would probably be a better person, but I think pretty low.
It's very low. I mean, because you got to understand, you're only working with utilities and roads and concrete pads, right? Very minimal. We're not working with roofs and sheetrock and windows and floors and toilets, really, with just the exterior plumbing. So, you can hit it low, but banks are always going to hit it at what they're going to want to hit it at. But if you're going to look at it, analyzing one, 25% or less.
So y'all were underwriting with the 25% or less on your underwriting expenses. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that must be what the bank is kind of underwriting it with.
The bank's going to probably hit you at about 35%. But what we're going to look at it for internally is 25%. We'll still underwrite it with 35%. But internally, we're going to look at what we know we can do. And I don't know if Jeff just mentioned this or not, but Jeff, did you mention about, lay the pad rent out versus the, home rent to get a higher evaluation, right? That's what you just said, correct?
That touch base on that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because that's highly important because we learned that as we were going, that if you're going to, do a home, like if you own the park home and let's say you're going to get, do a seller finance for $600, make portion of it go to say 450 and 150 go towards the home. So when they analyze that, they go off of that pad rent. That can give you a 7-figure additional valuation. Yeah. That's highly important.
Man, that's pro tip right there.
That's big. That's big.
Okay. So what are y'all heavier in your mobile home or your RV right now?
RV.
And is that really do you have a favorite out of the two?
Well, I think it used to be mobile homes, but COVID happened. So there's been a lot of challenge in getting used homes because a lot of the big boys would fill their park with new homes. When the supply chain slowed down, they had to go and buy a lot of used homes. So if you buy a 200 pad park and it's 60% occupied, right? You got 80 homes you got to fill. So with that being said, you put 80 new homes in. If you don't have a supply chain, you go out and buy nice used homes. So the used home market dried up pretty quickly after 2020 hit. And so it made it a little bit challenging. We bought a 100 pad park and because we buy 60% occupied park, that was bread and butter. And we buy a home for $5,000, put $5,000 in it and rent it for $500. Right. I mean, it was awesome. Huge. But, we pivoted. We made a change to RVs because these RVs can come and go. We can market and fill these pads up. And, so we look at it from a little bit of different standpoint and we're not really worried about the transient. We actually welcome it because we're like, okay, we can fill these parks. Let's market. Let's see if we can get some long-term in there too. We like to have more long-term than we do short-term at our parks.
I would think you're marketing your RV parks heavier than your mobile home parks. Is that the case?
Yes.
Just because you got seasonal visitors in your transient as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what does an RV park look like? I mean, I know there's a couple here. There's one that's got an asphalt road and then it runs over into gravel pads. Then there's another one that's 100% gravel and it looks just like a mud pit all around it because it's in newer construction, but filled up very quick. Kind of describe what your parks look like.
We have a mix. We have everything from small 40 pad park that is gravel with gravel pads. And it's a cash cow. It's amazing. It stays full. We have a waiting list for people to get in there. It's right on the water. People love it. It's quaint. It's clean. But, it's not super high end. It's a great location. And then we have fish camps that, 70 acres, 125 pad park, 1,500 frontage of water, boat slips.
Wow.
I mean, this is where people come out and the birds are chirping. It's quiet. They're fishing. They're 30 minutes away from town. And I mean, it's an absolute, beloved park that we have. Then we have more of a higher end, in Florida where it's, super well maintained RVs and it's got a nice restaurant. It's got boat and RV storage. We're developing a new boat and RV storage in the middle portion. We're getting $1,100 a month per pad there versus $450 per month. Half of our parks have paved roads and concrete pads. Half of our parks don't. It just really depends on the market, where it's at, and what the concept really is. That's the cool thing behind a park. It's like, what is the concept you're trying to go for? Because there's so many, niches in the RV park class. It's not just one way. You have different people that you attract, which brings in different rents. But at the end of the day, regardless if it's a $450 rent, a $250 rent, or $1,100 rent, we're not going to be slumlords, right? We're still going to keep it clean. You're going to make sure that you don't have a bunch of washers and dryers and broke down cars, right? Like, maintain your area, keep it nice. We look for community. We really call them residents, and guests versus tenants. That's what we're looking for, is that sense of community. Wouldn't you agree, Jeff?
Absolutely. 100%.
Is there different pad sizes? I mean, are some folks coming in with big motor homes compared to, the camper that's being pulled behind, or y'all just set up to where if you've got a motor home, it's going to fit on all the pads?
Yeah. Most of our pad areas are large enough to take a 48 footer and a, 18 footer. Right.
Gotcha.
So, and, you have different people that charge different things. Like some parks will have like water view. Like we have one park that has water view, and then, a portion of it doesn't. You can charge more for certain areas, just like in hotel room, right? You got a harbor view, you got a poolside view, you got the other building that you see in the building. Like, so you can kind of, charge how you would prefer to, and you'll still be able to collect that. So, and also you can do some dynamic pricing as well. As you start filling your park up, you may charge, say $100 a night, but let's say you got 30 short term. Let's say you have a 100 pad park and you got 30 spaces left, right? Now you can start going, instead of 100, we can do $120 a night. And then it just keeps going up. You travel a lot. You go to a lot of these events, right? You notice how, like, if you go look at a hotel room and for some reason you didn't book it because you have all these calls and texts coming in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, dang, I got to book this the very next day, or a flight, right?
Yeah.
Flight price went up on you by X number of dollars.
Yeah.
Same thing with the parks. You can do that. So if you want to capture that, it's available.
What other areas are y'all finding that you can increase your revenue on these properties outside of just the pad rent?
I mean, there's so many. Jeff, you want to jump on that?
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, the park that we bought in Florida, the pad rent jump is definitely nice, more than we have expected. But on top of that, we find some, storage, we find out in the sub-local market, everywhere you call it, the boat storage, the RV storage is completely full. So we have a, back area of the RV park where we can put in 60, 80, potentially 100 in RV storage at $100 a month. That's $10,000. And also the purchase comes with a portion of vacant land that we can build additional storage as well. Those are, projects with relatively little CapEx compared to the amount of, revenue can bring in. So storage, laundry income.
Yeah, laundry facilities are big.
Yep, laundry facility. And also we have a restaurant on site that we don't operate a restaurant, complete triple net lease. That's some additional income as well. So we can be as creative as they can think of in terms of what value can we bring to the local residents so that they're willing to pay for it.
Those are great ones, Jeff. You can also arbitrage a couple things like cable, internet, right? So you can get an internet provider. Say you have 100 pads. I mean, these guys will put their own internet out there and they're spending $75 a month, right? And you can go and get a plan for, say, $1,000, right? and you can give it out for say $50 per person and say, hey, you can have internet for $50. It's unlimited, right? So if you charge $50 across the board, that's $5,000 and it costs you $1,000. That's 4 G's a month that you can make. Now that's, one way you can do it. And that's if everybody took it. So you can just do the math based off if you did 50% or whatever. Storage is huge. I agree 100% with Jeff. I mean, if you can find an area on your part that you can be nice and neat and gate it and let people put their boats, and even some people have 2 RVs, right? And they want to store an RV or they have a trailer. I mean, storage is by far one of the easiest ways to stack some income.